Ladies and gentlemen, let's for a gaming telecom video. Let us discuss the AMD Jaguar inside the PS4. In other words, its CPU. I've done an article regarding this as well, simply because there is a heck of a lot of crossover with discussions and things I've covered in the past, and so rather than reiterating lots of technical stuff, I could simply point you to this, and it's got links to the various relevant pieces of information, if you're not apprised of it already, of course. Anyway, so the CPU of the PS4 has been discussed by Arrowhead Games, which are creating Helldivers. I've actually given the source of the interview, although it's very short anyway, in the article. Anyway, they've said that they're not sure of the clock speed of the CPU, since the game only needs to run on three vastly different platforms when it comes to performance. We've never encountered a ceiling on the PS4, meaning we get to focus on optimization efforts on the PS3 and the Vita. And of course, they've pointed out the clock speed increases the amount of processor each frame, and we have never encountered any performance issues with the PS4. From a development perspective, the clock speed isn't important. Only the percentage of frame time for each operation that we do, and with a faster clock speed each operation becomes faster, end quote. Now, I've actually tried to wrangle the clock speed from a few developers myself, and just like this developer, they're not really forthcoming, so it's obvious that quite a few of them either just don't know, or they're still under NDAs and are not willing to say. Either way, it's pretty much exactly the same thing in terms of the end result. We don't get the information. Sony are being really tight-lipped with this. Now, there's a few things we need to discuss before I close out the video. The first is regarding the CPU of the PS4, which I've really covered in depth anyway. You can check out some other articles if you want more information on it. We know a hell of a lot about it. In fact, the Xbox One, as many of you will be aware, uses pretty much exactly the same CPU. And indeed, we even know its clock speed. The Xbox One's is running at 1.75 GHz for what it's worth. Now, the clock speed for the PS4 could be pretty much anything. I've heard rumours from 1.6 to 1.8, and there are a few that are saying 2. But I find that very unlikely, since that's pretty much the ceiling of what the Jaguar can do. Now, there was also some other really weird rumours that were flying about concerning the clock speed of the Jaguar. Pretty much, the rumour was that it was running at 2.75 GHz. Now, I've got this linked in the article that I've linked to in the description, so you can check that out if you want, including the original images from this, because it was actually from an FCC filing of the development kits. Now, most likely, if you actually take the clock speed 2.75 and you times that by 2, you actually get the same clock speed of the GDDR5 memory, right, inside the PS4, which runs at 5500 MHz, just to clarify. And just because of the way GDDR5 memory, DDR memory works, that's likely what we're going to be seeing. I mean, there have been some other theories as well regarding Wi-Fi, but it's pretty much definitely not going to be the clock speed of the CPU, despite a few websites which I will not name, because it's not ever good practice to badmouth other websites, I find. Despite the fact that they've actually said that it's likely is, the maximum clock speed, it's really not. It's just one of the maximum frequencies inside the system, most likely, at least from what I understand, my personal perspective and my research. It's not been confirmed officially, but it's most likely to do with the CPU. Second point regarding the CPU's performance, and this isn't anything against the game's developer in question here, rather it's just a symbol of what I've been stating for a while. The problem is, when you ask an indie developer for something, unless it's something that's really taxing. Now, I know I've really maybe oversold something like Resogun. It's not that, they're paying me or anything, but it's just a really good example of a really taxing indie game. Although I believe only about 50% of the CPU for Resogun was being utilised, the PS4's resources, in terms of, utilization. I've heard it was only 50% from memory, but a lot of the GPU was being used because of the physics. That was all being done on compute, apparently, on the GPU. So my point being that a lot of the time, you know, they're just not going to tax the game as heavily as someone like, just making it up, let's say the new Mass Effect from Electronic Arts, or The Division from Ubisoft, or the Order 1886, and so on and so forth. It's not anything against them, it's just that, well, let's just face it, what can they really do? So that's one of the reasons that, despite the fact that there are a lot of indie titles on the PS4, and this isn't, you know, anything against the PS4 or indie developers, I just want to clarify that. I'm just merely pointing out that there is a lot of information from, you know, a lot of websites right now that are stating, you know, this game's running at 1080p at 60 frames a second. Yeah, but it's an indie game. It's like, you know, if you're running the original Quake 1, okay, admittedly I'm maybe slightly exaggerating here, but I'm trying to do it for emphasis. You know, if you build a new PC, or you build a PC and you say, yeah, dude, this can run games at 1080p at 60 frames a second, I said to you, oh, awesome, what's the game you're running at? And you say, oh, Quake. Okay, which Quake? Quake 1. Okay. You know, okay, well that doesn't really tell me the performance of everything, does it? If on the other hand you tell me, hey dude, by the way, I can run Crysis 3 on maximum settings at 1080p with anti-aliasing at 60 frames a second, then okay, you got a kick-ass system then. You see what I'm saying? It's all about what you're actually running and software. And as I said, this isn't anything against indie games. This isn't saying that all indie games aren't taxing, because obviously that's just not true. Some indie games are pretty damn taxing for the system, but in some cases it's just not. But what I do like about this, and the reason I bring it to your attention, is I think it's quite interesting that a lot of developers just don't know what the clock speed is. I've mentioned this before myself, that, you know, for my own research, but it's just interesting to hear it from someone else. Plus, as well, from their perspective as developers, they don't really care on, you know, especially if you're a smaller developer, you're probably not going to really care that much. I mean, this isn't certainly the case for all, but they're probably not really going to care too much about the actual specifications. Just, bottom line is, does it do what I need it to do as a developer? I want it to do X, Y, and Z, and I need it to look like A, B, C. Does it do that? Yes. Okay, moving on. And that's kind of the perspective a lot of developers are. At least from my perspective anyway, from my dealings with them when I'm discussing things with them and so on, that's what I get the feelings as well. Anyway, as I said, just to provide some clarifications and all of that good jazz. Anyway, I'm going to get going. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care, my friends, and bye for now.